The first thing we'll need to do is remove the hood off the P100 Pro. Simply gently pry on the back of the hood to pop it off of its holder, then grab the front of the hood and slide forward. Next, we'll need to remove the radar housing to access the SIM card door on the flight controller. On the passenger side of the P100 Pro, we'll see 2 screws holding on the radar housing. Those are M3, and we'll use our hand driver to remove those. Place the screws in a small container so you don't lose them. Next, we'll move to the driver's side of the P100 Pro and remove the 2 screws holding on the radar housing on this side. As you remove the final screw, place a hand on the front of the radar housing so it doesn't fall. Carefully slide off the radar housing and hang it below. Now we have access to the SIM card door on the front of the flight controller. We'll see 2 T6 screws that we'll use our driver to remove. Carefully grab those screws, pull them out, and place them in your parts container. Next, we'll use the tip of our T6 driver to carefully push into one of the SIM card door holes and gently pry the door off. Place this door in your parts bin. Then, if we gently reposition the cabling coming off of the front of the flight controller, we'll be able to see the location of our SIM card. Using a tweezers, gently push on the front of the SIM card until you hear a click, and then release, and the SIM card should slide out slightly. When you see it slide out, carefully use your tweezers to pinch on the SIM card and remove it. Pay attention to the orientation of the SIM card. We can see that it is silver side down, and we have a chamfer on the upper left corner of the SIM card. Next, we'll take our Airstrike Ag provided SIM card and remove it from its packaging. Keeping in mind the orientation of the SIM card when we took it out, we're going to flip it over so the contact side is down and the chamfer is in the top left corner of the SIM card. Taking you in closer, we can see the small rectangular area where the SIM card is supposed to be slid into. We want to be sure not to slide the SIM card into this section. You can push the SIM card into the flight controller and it will be loose inside, rattling around. We'll carefully take our tweezers, holding the SIM card in the right orientation, and slide it into the SIM card slot. Once the SIM card is installed, we'll carefully take the tips of our tweezers and gently push on the SIM card until we hear a light click. You'll know the SIM card is installed when you hear that slight click and the SIM card stays deep inside the flight controller. Next, we'll take our SIM card slot door and we'll make sure that we have the gasketed section off to the passenger side of the aircraft so that it seals properly. Simply press it back into place and take your 2 T6 Torx screws and hand tighten both screws. Now that the SIM card door is properly installed, we can reinstall our radar housing as well as our hood. Next, we'll gently take our radar housing and slide it back up into place so that all the mounting screws line up. You may have to hold the radar housing in until you put in one of the screws. Reinstall all 4 screws on the radar housing. It's important to only use hand tools on this job. You're threading into brass and plastic, and they're very sensitive to stripping. When that's complete, we can reinstall our hood by putting it on, sliding it slightly backwards, and taking the rear of the hood and pushing down until you hear a click. For this job, we'll need a small tweezers, an Airstrike Ag provided SIM card, as well as your ARC3 controller. The first thing we'll need to do is locate the SIM card slot on the ARC3 controller. Moving the antennas out of the way, on the top of the controller, we'll see a silicone cover labeled SIM1. Next, we'll remove our SIM card from our Airstrike Ag packaging and pull up the silicone cover over SIM1. Once we pull open that cover, we'll see a SIM card slot Next, we'll take our tweezers holding our SIM card silver or gold side facing up, and the small chamfer on the corner facing towards the USB-C cover right next to the SIM 1 cover on the controller. We'll carefully insert the SIM card into its slot, making sure that it is not pushed above or below where it can get lost inside the controller. Once the SIM card is partially installed, we'll carefully take the tips of our tweezers and push it in until we hear a slight click. When the SIM card clicks into place and doesn't pop back out of the controller, we'll know that it's fully installed, and we can then take our silicone cover and push it back tight. Now that we've properly registered our SIM card on the Airstrike Ag website, we can go ahead and input the APN address on our P100 Pro. The first thing we'll need to do is remove the hood. Simply pry on the back portion of the hood where it says XAG, and then slide the hood forward to remove it. The next thing we need to do is remove the two M2.5 screws holding in the tray that holds all of the cabling for the flight controller. Place those screws in a small tray so you don't lose them. The next thing we need to do is pull the tray slightly to the side so we can access the top of the flight controller. Now that we have the cable tray pulled slightly to the side, we can power on our drone by holding the battery power button for 3 to 5 seconds until the red light turns on. After waiting 30 to 45 seconds for the flight controller to fully initialize, we'll see a series of flashing lights on the top. What we're concerned with is the second light from the left. You'll also see, off to the left of the 4 flashing LEDs, on the aluminum heatsink there is a very small black button to press. What you'll also notice is to the left of the 4 flashing lights on the aluminum heatsink is a very small black button. This is the button we'll need to press to turn on the Wi-Fi for the flight controller. You'll need a small T6 Torx driver or a paper clip to press the small button. What we need to do is press this small button 3 times in sequence for about 2 seconds each time. 1 Mississippi 2, release. 1 Mississippi 2, release. And 1 Mississippi 2, release. And what you'll see is the LED second from the left, it'll change from flashing green to flashing orange. This tells us that the flight controller has turned on the Wi-Fi. We can now complete the rest of the APN setup on our phone or our operating device that runs the XAG One app to control the drone. Now that we've properly turned on the Wi-Fi for the drone's flight controller, we can do the rest of this process through the tablet or the phone that we control the drone with. The first thing we'll need to do is connect to the Wi-Fi of the flight controller. If you have an Apple device or an Android device, this process may be slightly different. Regardless, we need to get to our Wi-Fi settings, and we'll see a few options for Wi-Fi pop up. We'll tap on Wi-Fi here, and one of the options is XAG in all caps, followed by the serial number of your drone. There's also a lowercase Wi-Fi that says XAG. We do not want this one. We'll tap on the uppercase, and it'll ask us for the password. The password for all of these drones is 2007-0401, and I made my password visible there so you can see it properly. After we have that typed in, we'll tap on connect, and the device will check the connection of the drone just to make sure everything works. You may see an option pop up asking how this device connects to the drone. We'll do connect only this time. Once everything's configured, we'll see a connected without internet notification directly under the name of your Wi-Fi connection. Now that we're properly connected to the drone's Wi-Fi, we can get into our XAG One app and configure the APN address. Once we get to our home page, we can tap on the Me icon in the bottom right of the screen, followed by Device. Once we get to this page, we'll see 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner. Tap on those. You'll see a few options: Search APN Configuration and RCN Mode. We want to tap on APN Configuration. Here we'll see some more options. One is for a drone, a remote controller, and an XRTK station. We'll tap on Drone. Your XAG One app will give you instructions on how to turn the Wi-Fi on your drone, but since we've already done this, we'll tap on Wi-Fi Connected in the bottom right. The next thing we'll see is our APN configuration page with an APN address, a username, and a password. What we're concerned with is the APN address, and we can ignore both the username and the password. We'll tap on the APN address and make sure we have typed in dac.wbdata, all lowercase, no spaces. Once we have that typed in, we'll tap on the screen again and click Submit on the bottom. When everything is configured properly, we'll receive a notification saying Configured in the middle of the screen, to which we can tap OK. Now we can back up a few steps back to our main screen, tap on Home, and your P100 Pro is now properly configured to run an Airstrike Ag SIM card. Now that we're back at the drone, we can replace the tray that holds down the cabling and reinstall the screws. Now that the screws are reinstalled, we can reinstall our hood. Now that the hood is reinstalled, we can power cycle our drone and get to flying.